Once considered fodder for science fiction enthusiasts, the subject of unidentified flying objects has become a matter of national security. Next month, the Director of National Intelligence is scheduled to release a report about what officials call unidentified aerial phenomena. It has collected data from across several government and military agencies. Bryan Bender has been following this story closely. He's a senior national correspondent at Politico. Bryan, thanks for being here. And obviously, we don't know what's going to be in this report. We are not going to speculate. But one thing that is, in fact, clear is that the government is taking this issue of what it's calling unidentified aerial phenomena seriously, which seems already like something of a departure from the conventional wisdom. So I'm hoping you can start off by just telling us about the various efforts that are underway.
Well, there's no doubt that at least the public conversation has changed dramatically in the last couple of years. The government seems much more willing to talk about this issue, to make clear that they are studying a series of sightings that have been reported in recent years by military pilots and other personnel. I've been covering the Pentagon a long time, and I think the thing that has changed the most is years and years went by, no one ever brought up UFOs at a press conference or think tank event. But now every couple of weeks, it seems, political leaders, military leaders are kind of put on the spot. What's going on with these things? What are you doing? And Congress has certainly taken an interest, which is why there's this request to deliver a public report, which we're expecting as early as the next couple of weeks. It's supposed to lay out kind of what the government is doing about these sightings, maybe a little more information about what they're seeing. But really, what is the strategy? If there are things flying up there, into military airspace that we can identify, and they're exhibiting, in some cases, it sounds like, very advanced aerodynamic properties, maybe we should get to the bottom of it. So there's certainly a focus on it. What's going to be in the report, as you said, I think it's anyone's guess at this point.
Yeah. Bryan, one of the things that I liked about your article was motley crew isn't quite the right word for it, but the big diversity of voices, an unlikely combination, scientists and engineers, a spy, astronauts, and even the singer from Blink 182, it all helped make the topic less science fiction and more mainstream. You say that one of the biggest figures to take part in this was actually Harry Reid, which may surprise some of our viewers. Can you walk us through the events that actually brought us to this moment?
Sure. Yeah, we thought, there's all this talk of UFOs and all this media coverage and all this anticipation about this forthcoming report. And we thought, how did we get here? Maybe we should go back and kind of do a little bit of an origin story, as I was calling it. And as you pointed out, there's been this group of people for many years who have been plotting, organizing, researching, trying to get the government, at least publicly, to pay more attention to these UFO sightings. And you mentioned Senator Harry Reid. He's had an abiding interest in this for many years, although he did it quite privately, would have conversations with other members of Congress, would organize and discuss with all kinds of scientists and, like you said, astronauts. Robert Bigelow, who's a hotel magnate in Las Vegas, who later started an aerospace company, was a donor of Harry Reid's. He was very interested in this subject. And then you mentioned the singer from Blink 182, Tom DeLonge, a punk rocker from the 90s and early 2000s, who has been obsessed with UFOs his whole life and decided that he was going to do something about it. So he, in the 2015, 2016 timeframe, started to pull together this group of people, former CIA people, former military people, connected with people like Harry Reid and this man, Robert Bigelow, who I mentioned, and really started knocking on the doors of the Pentagon and the Congress and the executive branch and just enlisting allies into this sort of public campaign to try and get this on the Washington agenda in a way that it hasn't been, certainly for a very long time, if ever.
And speaking of the government, obviously, the former Senator Harry Reid, who you mentioned, had a big role in Congress. He's also, of course, from Nevada, and that's where Area 51 is located. But really quickly, you said that he initially wanted his participation to be kept secret, and it was for 25 years. Why did he want to keep it secret, and why is he breaking his silence with you now?
Well, I mean, when he was in the Senate, he was very careful about being associated with this publicly. He was the power behind a relatively small but dedicated effort in the Pentagon in 2009 to study some of these sightings and try and figure out, what they could about them. That was done pretty much behind the scenes at the time. He did get buy-in from some fellow senators who obviously had to support, dedicating in that case $22 million for this kind of research. But I think once he left the government, he certainly felt like he didn't have anything to lose politically. And he felt like, this was something that he wanted to take on in a more public way. And I think, even back in 2009, when he was behind the scenes kind of pushing the government to do more, his political advisors were like, you're out of your mind. What are you doing here? If this gets out that Harry Reid is the UFO senator from Nevada, this may not help you very much. I have talked to Senator Reid a number of times. I think he's a true believer. And by a true believer, I mean not that he's convinced that aliens are buried at Area 51 or all of these conspiracy theories about alien visitations and that sort of thing, but he believes that it's a blind spot in our national security. The fact that these reports are happening, these sightings are happening, these are very credible, in the case of the military, people that are reporting them. And, as a number of people have told me, if these, saucer-looking things had Russian or Chinese markings on them, the Pentagon would be running around with a chicken without its head. And the fact that they don't know what they are, they can't explain them, and they can't really do much, by the way, to sort of track them and keep up with them when they do see them. They've sort of been in denial on some level. And I think Harry Reid's view is, we have to get out of this denial.
On that, Bryan, because it is really fun to think about the possibility that the universe is far greater than we can comprehend. But are there some more earthly explanations for these objects? We just have a few moments left, and I definitely need to ask you that question.
Well, I think, there's the categories of the possible that they're completely logical terrestrial explanations, whether it's weather balloons or refracted light that, is misinterpreted. There's obviously the possibility that the Pentagon has been seriously looking into, that this is some adversary or foreign country that made some breakthrough that we don't have, but we should probably try to figure it out. And then, of course, there's, what I call the none of the above, which is, are they from somewhere else? The Pentagon did a study that looked at the possibility that these things could be from here, but a different here. They called it multidimensional travel. So are these things from somewhere not that far away, but we can't see them? It's a different reality. So, you can go down the rabbit hole, and there's, the rabbit hole is deep.
So, Bryan Bender, we could go on and on. I can tell you and I could talk about this ad nauseum.
But we shouldn't.
But really appreciate you. Appreciate you coming on today. Thank you.